All right, this past Saturday, of course, Alex Pereira defeated Israel Adesanya to become the UFC middleweight champion. Pereira was down in the fight 3-1, according to the official scorecards. Yet that didn't stop him from digging deep and stopping the last style bender in round 5 via TKO. At the post-fight press conference, however, the topic of the immediate rematch came up plenty of times. Sounds like everyone is in. Are you? I'm talking to the fans here. Of course, I'm going to talk to the panel, but I want to know, who do you think should be the favorite here? I look for odds. I still haven't found any as of a few minutes before this live SBC. So maybe you guys can even play odds maker for me. Now, it might sound like a silly question because Pereira's 3-0 against Israel Adesanya, but may I stress again, Israel Adesanya was carrying a 3-1 lead going into round 5. All right, Mike, you're going to get us started this week. Go.
Yeah, this is obviously an extremely interesting fight as it played out. It was, awesome. I think it lived up to the hype up until that point. But, Alex Pereira, I think we all knew that he's got the power to really change the game here. Israel had to be the more technical guy out there and kind of pick his shots, and he couldn't make a single mistake in this fight, and he really didn't in the lead up to the 5th round. But in that 5th round, Alex Pereira knew, his team knew that he had to go for it. He had to leave everything out there because this was a huge moment for him. I mean, if he had lost this fight, his climb back to a title shot was going to be really difficult. Does he get past the Whitakers, the Vittoris, these guys that are much more difficult stylistic matchups for him? So he came out there and he did his thing. And I think, going into a potential rematch in another fight here, this would be a similar analysis of it, right? Like, I think Izzy has to be nearly flawless to go in there, and I think he can be in a lot of ways. He just needs to not make many mistakes. So I would not be surprised if he was the favorite again going into a fight, just looking how the way it played out. But I think the odds will be much, much closer. I mean, I think he was around like a -230, something like that going into fight time. I would imagine it would be in the 100 range, maybe even like closer to a pick'em or something like that if they do it again. But I would not be surprised at all to see Izzy being the favorite another time going into this fight, despite the fact that he is 0-3.
Yeah, I mean, you said it perfectly, exactly how I'm feeling, man. 3-0 or whatever. He has competed in every single one of those fights, even in the last 2 that he got clipped. How about you, Fada?
I think Pick'em is right about correct, just for the simple reason that because Alex Pereira carries so much power, it's almost like he's got 25 minutes to find that chin. That's the way I look at it. And he did, and it was kind of last second, 3 minutes left in the fight. But Izzy did really fight almost a perfect fight. He really did. There were some scrambles on the ground, and I thought that was going to zap Pereira's energy. That's kind of one of the things I was talking about in the preview show, how mixing in the grappling was going to be good for Izzy, not necessarily because I saw it as a chink in Pereira's armor, which I think we did see a lot of holes, but I think because Izzy's not really a grappler, but I think it was the idea of really zapping that energy out of him, the cardio, so he could carry less power into the latter rounds, the championship rounds, and that was a big question for me. So I was very impressed with the fact that the way he kind of turned things around. His corner work obviously did a great job of amping him up, and then he managed to find that chin in round 5 and still showed us that he still packs that power even super late into the fight. So I think that was the most thing I was impressed by. And the fact that he has 25 minutes to find that chin, I think maybe a pick him. And I also wouldn't be surprised if he was a slight favorite. But again, I also wouldn't be surprised if Adesanya was favorite because he was winning that fight and he was fighting very well.
Yeah, and Adesanya was getting done well on the ground too. He showed a little bit of that. Man, it's so many things to factor in here. But let me get one thought here before you get to you goes. Michael Joel says, Izzy is my boy, but I don't see him beating Alex in the rematch. Man, I disagree. Could easily happen. It might not happen, of course, but I think it could easily happen. Again, 3-1. Hello. I mean, it was right there for the taking for him. Goes?
Yeah, and I think if you're a fan of Izzy, I think you're going to be okay going on this one. It is crazy, right? Because he is 3-0 over him. Yeah, we get that, the scorecards and all that, but we don't just kind of pick up a book and read the ending, right? We have to read the body of work. It tells the story. And in that story was a tactical, but also somewhat dominating Israel Adesanya. He did all the things he said he was going to do. He was exciting for the fans. He nearly ended the fight at the end of round 1 or 2 more seconds, and that we're not even talking about any of this. So we can't really ignore all those things. There is an edge for Alex Pereira. It's a mental edge. It's a slight edge, but he's got it. You got to. You still have to factor in what happened in kickboxing because it lives up here in Israel Adesanya's head. And now when you add in this extra MMA fight, Of course, it's got to kill him. But at the end of the day, they're going to go back, they're going to watch the footage, and he's going to understand that he had that fight. It was right there. And I just don't see in a rematch how we can ignore all that stuff. So when you're talking about odds, you have to get rid of the other fights. Just look at it as MMA. He's 1-0 in MMA. That's what we're factoring into this MMA fight. Okay. So I would have it somewhere opening about minus 150 Adesanya, but I bet you by the time it's fight time, I bet you that thing climbs up to about 200.
Yeah, it all's gonna depend on how you believe. I mean, look at here. We got a gentleman here in Rahul Kumar saying Izzy was boring. Glad he got slept. See, I would disagree there. I did not think that fight was boring, man. If he had gone to a decision, I would have said great fight. I was very, very entertained, and I think he's off there. He didn't get slept. I mean, I guess he got stopped, and I guess I want to know from you guys, did you even think it was an early stoppage? Let's go right back around the horn. Mike, what did you think? Were you okay with the stoppage?
I was, especially being there cage side in the moment. I mean, I haven't had the chance to actually rewatch it from the broadcast angle. I've seen like some Twitter clips and stuff like that, but being there, I thought it was okay. Like Izzy was on our side of the octagon, more or less where press row was, and he was definitely dazed. Like he was moving around. You could see like it was one of those situations where very close, like one or two more shots, Alex was coming in for the kill there, and he would have been out cold. And I get him wanting to say like, let me go out on my shield. He jokes around, bring back Steve Mazzagatti, things like that. I can get that. This is the highest level of the sport. The stakes do not get bigger. This is a guy who is an undefeated champion in this weight class, never lost as a middleweight going in. You want to make this absolutely definitive, right? But then that changes a lot of things too, right? Like we're talking about a rematch. If Izzy gets put out cold, a really bad one, who knows how long it might take him to recover from that. So in a way to allow, protect the fighter, give him some future, leg room to get back in there and fight, he was done a favor by the referee, because even if I don't think he was coming back and winning in that moment. Maybe he survived to the end of the round, then we get him winning, 3-2 on the scorecards, unless we get a 10-8 in that round, then it turns into a draw, which would have been a whole other layer of craziness. But right here, right now, I am okay with the stoppage, but I understand the sentiment from Adesanya, how he wants to be put completely out, because this is, the highest level and such a big moment, so many stakes for him, and you just don't want to have any stuff left in your mind to let it linger.
Fada, what did you think of the stoppage? Could you have handled a few more seconds or blows to the head, however it is that your threshold is?
I thought it was slightly early, and I do agree in terms of the rule set. You have to be intelligently defending yourself, so I'm not like super mad about it. But when you look at the fact that he was up 3-1, and the fact that you never know, we've seen crazier things in fights, so I guess we would have never known, right? That's the whole point. Why I wouldn't disagree if he just let it go slightly, just a little bit. We never know what could have happened if Adesanya would have dove in for a single leg, if Pereira, if they would have grappled a little bit more, if Pereira would have gotten a little bit tired and then he would have survived, or maybe it was going to be put out cold. We don't know. And of course, as Mike alluded to, if he was put out cold, that would have delayed kind of like rematch hopes, and we don't know what a knockout like that could do to a fighter's career. But that's the whole point. We wouldn't have known. So maybe I thought it was slightly early. Maybe let it go just a few seconds more.
Yeah, and goes like I told you, I thought Pereira was more hurt at the end of round one, and Chandler was more hurt at the end of round one than Izzy when that fight was stopped. He was still kind of moving, and then he reacted quickly to the ref, like, "What are you doing?" So his faculties were there. Wobbled, yes. Hurt, yes. Rocked, yes. All of that, but I still thought that he deserved a little bit more. How about you guys?
Well, we hear fighters argue about this all the time. Like some of them say every fight should be treated equally, and others say championship fights should maybe go a little bit longer. I've seen referees kind of handle that differently themselves, but in this particular case, I think what was awaiting Israel Adesanya would have been horrific. I mean, he was looking straight down, he could barely stand, and Alex Pereira could hit you with just about anything that he wants. So I think he kind of saved him from probably being out for a good while. I'm good with it. I do understand when people say maybe it could have gone a little bit more, and who knows, maybe he could have found a way to get out of it, because fighters have. But in this particular case, I think the right call was made.
Yeah, one thing we can all agree, it was one hell of a fight. So yeah, Kumar's off on this one. It was not boring. Go tell that fairy tale to Harold.
And if you go back to, the point about him being potentially knocked out cold, if you listen to what Eugene Behrman told Ariel Helwani in their interview last week before the fight, talking about the kickboxing fight, when he was knocked out cold, he said he made him take a year off from fighting. Like, he was even lying to Izzy, saying there was no fights available for him just because he wanted to give him that long time to recover. I imagine if that happened again, he would have taken a similar approach. Adesanya has fought, 3 times in the last 10 months. He's been the most active champion in the UFC. So maybe even with this, he still takes a pretty good time off. He said at the post-fight press conference that he's maybe dealing with some health stuff or personal stuff. So there's something going on there. And I think if he had been put out very, very badly, it would have just been a long delay for him. We might not see him for a year. We might not see him for a while anyways, but I think if that had happened, it would certainly be a very long layoff. And then we're talking about having to go a whole different direction with the middleweight division.